You've asked for it, and here we go with the top 5 best openings for black for the next year. I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, and let's go ahead and get started. Coming in number 5 is your opening weapon against the queen's pawn move pawn d4. It is a particular variation of the Dutch defense. Here, as white continues with their standard moves and knight to c3, this is sort of an inaccuracy because it allows bishop b4 and it transposes it into the Rubinstein variation that we are going to achieve here. Now, if your opponent does nothing for countering this pin, at some point you can even capture it yourself and double his pawns. If your opponent tries to neutralize it, it doesn't really matter. You still keep setting up your usual system. You play knight of 6. If they ever play a3, no problem. We trade it off, and then you go pawn to b6, developing the bishop to this extremely active diagonal. And although the 56% win rate does not seem like a lot for black, but you guys have reported it so heavily that it works for you. You win a ton of games that I think that we sort of figured it out within the Igor Nation that it's actually very effective, and it can be much more effective than it seems just based on the generic win rate. Because here, first off, you have this very simple system, right? Because you play these moves no matter what. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to know any opening theory. Plus, you have a very simple middle game plan. You've got this active bishop, putting pressure down this diagonal because we expect him to castle there. You also have this excellent square for your knight. It puts pressure all around your opponent's position. Right now, it potentially is ready to take the bishop and to double his pawn structure. If he defends it, then you need to develop this bishop, and there is also a well-known way for you to do that. We do not really want to put it right here because it would block our own bishop. That is why instead you play d6 and develop the knight on the square d7. After your opponent plays whatever, you bring the knight out to d7. And you have here this really nice, very harmonious setup. Plus, you've got a clear attacking plan for the middle game. Again, you've got this active bishop. Thanks to this pawn on f5, you have space advantage on the king side, which makes it very easy for you to reroute your heavy pieces towards the king side. For example, you can reroute the rook right here, and together with the bishop, it's going to be putting pressure. Or you can do the same with your queen. Also, together with the bishop, it's going to be quite effective. Moreover, very often your opponent feels annoyed by your really monstrous knight on e4. They're trying to neutralize it, and they play something like knight d2 to either trade it off or to play f3. And this very natural looking move usually turns out to be a step in the wrong direction, because even though they try to counter your knight, but at the very same time, they're removing basically the only defender of their castling, and therefore now you can very quickly bring your queen into the attack to one of these two squares, which are no longer controlled by the knight, and now you start your checkmating attack straight here. So what can they do? Just think about this. If, let's say, they trade on e4, the move which they intended to play, now we hit the queen, and after the queen moves, this queen takes g2 checkmate. It's very simple. Ironically, quite often they follow up with their intended move pawn f3, trying to kick off this knight from e4, but instead of trading the knight, you certainly have a much stronger move to play, which is queen takes c3 check, because it turns out that f3 was just a blunder. Now, your knight also controls this square. They can't cover, they gotta move, and at this point you could win in different ways, but the most spectacular way is to sacrifice a knight. And after the knight is accepted, then all of a sudden you move the rook not to f7 to f6 with this checkmate, which your opponent cannot stop. Coming in number 4 is a very aggressive way to counter the popular right liver attack. Here, instead of recapturing the knight, the pawn which would fall into white's trap, or playing knight a5, which is the main line, there is a very interesting move pawn b5. Moreover, recently Carlsen has shown us that even in the best line, like the GM's line bishop f1, which is super counterintuitive, black is still fine even after that. But of course, in reality, most of your opponents will play a much more natural move bishop takes b5, which is wrong. And now after queen takes pawn, you've got 59% win rate, and the following attack is just very flawless for you. Now, from here, you hit the bishop as well as this pawn on g2. Therefore, they'll usually trade. Now they still need to guard this pawn. Therefore, they castle and you play bishop b7. Your plan is very simple, just to checkmate them with the queen. Although the plan is simple, it's not at all easy for white to stop it. Now, Stockfish recommends queen to e3, which is an, again, counterintuitive move for a human to play, because you've got your bishop right here, putting pressure, and putting the queen right on the fire line of your bishop does not seem to be cool. Plus, even there, after e4, the position still remains to be very interesting. You can play h6, you know, and later bishop c5, castle queenside with a lot of attacking ideas, so it's still far from being simple for white to defend after that. But in reality, most of the time, your opponents will use a more natural move, which is either f3 or knight to f3. And in both cases, you've got a really simple attacking plan. Let's say they move the knight right here, all right? You just castle queenside. Your king is surprisingly safe here, even though you are lacking one pawn, but since no one was watching, you replaced it by the bishop, and you're still fine. It looks like a tall pawn. Plus, you've got this rook to this open file, which is also nice. Let's not forget that you're always putting pressure down this pawn on g2, meaning their knight can't ever move. If they ever move the knight here, there's queen takes g2, boom, and it's a checkmate. If they play any other move like d3 or knight c3 or whatever, basically, you can push this g-pawn forward. You want to play g4, kick this knight away, and still deliver the same queen takes g2 checkmate. We don't even worry if they are going to capture this bishop, because that now opens up the g-file for your rook, which enables you to put even more pressure. Now, if they do nothing, you're going to sack the rook right here, deflecting the knight. Let's say, let me play it out. You can sack the rook right here, and then queen takes g2. You see that this idea really plays out in all of these variations, because it's very hard for white to do anything about it. If let's say he trades the bishops right here, it's not going to make their situation much better here after that. You've got still this really strong pressure. Bishop takes f3 is a major threat. If they try to support it with the other knight, you can just add one more attacker, and it is all over. There's no way for them to defend. You just overpower them with too many attackers involved into your attack after, let's say, whatever move. And there are different ways for you to win the game. Like the most spectacular would be to sack the rook, just to open up the king completely, to bring the other one. And after this check, the king needs to move. Now you can eliminate one of these knights, finishing the game with either a queen or bishop, and it's mate. Comedy number 3 is an aggressive and yet sound way to counter the queen's pawn move, because usually those who play it, they wish to play calm positional chess, such as the London system and whatnot, and therefore you can ruin their fun by playing e5 straight away. Now, notice that we're not going to go for the shady England Gambit, where you go knight c6, queen e7, and just playing hope chess. Instead, you play d6, and you simply prioritize quick development. At the cost of one pawn, you get ahead in development and you have nice attacking ideas. So in this position, it's just worth knowing that your main plan is to castle queenside. Your king prefers king size bet. Therefore, you need to develop the queen and bishop first. You do that by just bringing the bishop out, also putting some pressure right there, and after e3, you move the queen, getting ready to castle. In most cases, they're going to try to neutralize this pin, so they'll develop the bishop, and then you castle queenside, completing your plan. Now you've got a really nice attacking position, so if you reached this point, I'd say you have great chances of winning the game quickly. For example, their castling is already a losing blunder. Now, I do hope that you will find the winning shot on your own, but meanwhile, let me tell you that since it's holiday season, I've had a quick convo with Santa. He told me that you mostly have been bad boys and girls. Some of you even used the Duras Gambit to crush your opponents, but you're still hoping for presents. And therefore, let me remind you that it is the final day to make use of our holiday specials. And you can get any of my premium courses at a 50% discount, and on top of that, it is buy one, get one free. So if you want to crush your chess goals next year, whatever they are, get to the level of 2000 or even become a title player, we got you covered. We had lots of students who achieved all that, and you can follow a proven roadmap to achieve just that. Back to the game, I hope that you noticed that there is a discovered attack on the queen after bishop takes h2. It is simpler to first trade off this defender, and after this, bishop takes h2 opens up this attack, you win the queen, then you keep attacking and you win the game. But it's more than just hope chess. Even if your opponent doesn't castle into this tactic, and let's say play bishop d2 to cover the queen, then still after knight f6, and let's say they castle, you play something like pawn h5 to kickstart your kingside attack. Even though white is up a pawn, it's very difficult for them to realize what to do next, and you're already putting pressure down there with your bishops, with your pawn marching forward, with your knights that are ready to jump forward. For example, h3, a natural move that loses the game on the spot. You can trade the defender, then play queen e5, threatening this sneaky checkmate, and g3 is not helpful because after h4, now this pawn can't move because of the queen h2 checkmate. Otherwise, you take yourself, you also include your rook into play, and you crush white. Coming in number 2 is our favorite bad boy, and yes, we can't avoid talking about it, the Russo Gambit, which is somewhat similar to the King's Gambit or the Vienna Gambit with reversed colors. You're playing this as black and now you're hitting them in the center. Now, I've checked statistics of this year and I can tell you that it still works. Very few of your opponents know how to get it right. Computer recommends playing pawn d4 here for white, but it's a very counterintuitive move, as you just attack their pawn and instead of capturing or defending it anyhow, they play something else. This is very counterintuitive for humans to do. Also, statistically, only in about 1 game out of 10 you're actually going to see this move, because from your opponent's perspective, it's also not easy to study all these lines. They're complicated. They have to study all this complex theory, even if they consult it once with an engine. Therefore, they usually prefer playing d3, which is certainly not as challenging, and there are a lot of traps. I've got other videos about this, you can check this out. But the majority of your players, of your opponents, are still gonna lightheartedly capture this pawn, which is wrong, because it gives way to your other pawn to go forward and to chase away the knight. Since you control these central squares, as well as these squares along this diagonal, mostly your opponents will figure out that they messed up. What can they do? Well, retreating the knight back to g1 just feels kind of passive. Then you can play d5 and suggest that your opponent also brings the bishop back and tries it out next time, hopefully smarter. Some of your opponents will try to outsmart you and play queen e2, pinning the pawn, but that leads to the classical trap of the Russo Gambit. We're gonna unpin the pawn with our queen. The knight still needs to move. Then you play knight f6, getting ready to play d5. And lots of your opponents will realize that they're sort of stuck. They can't develop the knight, they can't castle because your pawn is on the way. Therefore, they offer a trade, but you say, no thank you. And instead of the trade, you go knight d4, hitting the queen, and this pawn on c2. Even though if you guys are following this channel for a long time, you may think that this is a trap that everyone knows, but it's not. Statistically, still, most of your opponents are going to fall for it. Because the queen needs to move somewhere here or here, doesn't matter. We ignore the queen, and we sack the knight with this double attack. After a queen captures, there is this fancy discover check, and we're gonna grab the queen and win the game. Coming in number 1 is the counter to the London system that you're probably facing quite frequently. Now, a lot of players love the London system for its simplicity, because they just play d4, then they bring the bishop out, and they play all these standard moves of the London system. The downside, however, is that we know exactly what they're going to do. And since we know their plan, we can find a way to ruin it. So first off, you play c5, challenging this pawn straight away. They'll usually play e3, which is the correct move. c3 is another alternative, but the downside of this move is after the trade in queen b6, now these two pawns are somewhat under pressure, and there is no convenient way for white to guard them. Therefore, this is considered less accurate for white, and mostly they're going to play pawn e3. In this case, you're going to still trade, and then you go for the kingside fianchetto. Now, again, we know very well what your opponent is going to do. They're going to put up the central pawn chain, then they're going to play knight f3, they're going to play bishop to d3, knight d2, and castle, in one order or the other, which doesn't matter for us. Now, here's another interesting moment that you may pay attention to. We refrained from moving this pawn forward, because we wanted to keep it flexible. Maybe you wish to play to d5 in a standard way, but even more so, you wish to go pawn d6. Because then, after this move, they play something like knight e2, you go knight c6, and now as they castle, all of a sudden you strike in the center with the move pawn e5, with really phenomenal 70% win rate for you. There are a lot of cool things about this variation. First of all, you ruin their London setup. They can't get away with just playing standard typical moves. Now they have to think and calculate, and you're already challenging them. This is exactly what they tried to avoid by playing the London system. Also, your position is objectively already better. You're already putting pressure. You attack this pawn center, your bishop is going to become very strong down this diagonal. You always have this queen b6 to add more fire to your attack. But to make things better, most of your opponents are going to fall for the main trap. They're going to trade on e5, thinking that they have two attackers against one defender, but what they're overlooking is, yes, right here on e5, they're going to win a pawn. But in the meanwhile, they're also dropping the bishop on d3, and you end up with an extra piece. If you missed my similar video about the top 5 best openings for white, check it out right here. And also don't forget that it is the last day to make use of our holiday specials, so if you want to ruin the fun for your opponents, check it out.